L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Speaker, the Prime Minister continues to dodge the question about the tax he plans to quadruple on Canadian farmers. One farm alone in my riding is spending $150,000 a year on carbon taxes. And the Prime Minister wants to quadruple that number up to $600,000. That might put the farm out of business, which would mean we'd have to buy more foreign, expensive food from more polluting countries. And the Prime Minister is blocking a common-sense Conservative bill, C-234, in the Senate that would take the tax off our farmers. Will he commit here and now to another carbon tax flip-flop to carve it out for our farmers so our people can afford to eat?
There you go. Put pressure on them right on the spot.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Why is he answering?
There's only one party in this House that's flip-flopping, and it's the Conservatives with regards to their support for Ukraine. That's Mr. Right. Speaker, the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress has expressed its disappointment with the Conservatives for voting against the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement. In fact, they're calling on the Conservatives to change their position, to vote for the bill, and to support Ukraine.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it's hard to trust what the Leader of the Opposition says because he keeps changing his position. He says he supports Ukraine, but he didn't in his actions. He could direct his caucus to support this legislation and to support Ukraine.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, we're against the carbon tax deal that they put before the House, and we're against quadrupling the carbon tax on Canadian farmers. The Prime Minister can neither defend his position, nor does he have the courage to just admit, as he did on home heating oil, that he was wrong. He plans to quadruple the tax on our farmers who feed our people, which will send millions more people to the food bank. So will he rise today and show the courage to admit he was wrong and back Conservative Bill C-234 to take the tax off our farmers so that our people can afford to eat? Get up and answer.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's ironic to hear from the Leader of the official opposition about courage to admit he was wrong. In fact, on Thursday, when he was called out by the media for alleging falsely that there was a terrorist attack, instead of taking ownership like any Canadian would be expected to do, he blamed the media and he doubled down. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the opposition has a real challenge with taking responsibility.
It just seems like they're gaslighting right now.
And quite frankly, Canadians deserve better, and they deserve to know the truth behind his decisions and his actions. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Foothills.
Farmers from across Canada are calling on Liberal-appointed senators to support a common-sense Conservative Bill 234, which would lower costs on farming and making food more affordable. But the Liberals' Prime Environment Minister has threatened to resign if there's any carbon tax carve-outs. That's amazing when you have a record-shattering 2 million Canadians relying on food banks. The Environment Minister's dedication to making life unaffordable is unwavering. But will his Prime Minister ask that his Environment Minister stop threatening so-called independent senators and allow the passage of 234 so Canadians can afford to feed themselves?
The Honourable Minister for Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I would like to read you an extract from a news article. Canadian senator flees home amid safety concerns following wanted poster incident. In a disturbing turn of events, Canadian Senator Bernadette Clement was reportedly forced to leave her home due to fears for her safety.
Just because you feel a certain way don't mean it's true.
To a wanted poster.
You're allowed to feel a certain way, but facts are facts. It's not a danger to her life.
So who's bullying who in this House and in the Senate? Certainly not us. We're not telling senators how to vote. The Conservative Party is.
It's all about victimhood these days. Holy shit.
Here's the facts that the Environment Minister refuses to recognize. An Alberta poultry farm paid $180,000 a year in carbon taxes just to heat and cool their barn. When the Prime Minister quadruples his carbon tax, they'll be paying $480,000 a year. That farmer said he can't afford those tax hikes. His options are to pass on those costs to consumers or just call it quits. Is that what this Environment Minister wants, is to bankrupt Canadian farmers and force Canadians to food banks just to save his job?
Yes.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Here's what independent senators said about what the Conservative Party is doing in the House and in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Senator Saint-Germain said, bled violently through his earpiece and stood before us, Senate Clement, as we sat at our desk, yelling and berating us for proposing this routine motion. She said the Conservative senator pointed fingers at another ISG members and suggested he would block work doing on the Senate's Human Resources Committee. And no matter how much the Conservative Party would like us to believe that this is about taxation, it is not. It's about bullying, Mr. Speaker. That's what it is.
Encore une fois,
Once again, I'd like to call on all members to please refrain from speaking when it's not your turn. That way, all members can hear the question and the answer. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal government is costing Canadians more and more. The Liberal carbon tax on farmers is driving up the price of food. And I would remind you that people are already struggling when it comes to grocery costs. The Conservatives are proposing a common sense measure, which is to scrap the Liberal carbon tax on food production. That's Bill C-234, which is in the Senate. Everybody is with us on this. It's just the sore losers that don't agree with us on this. Why don't they tell their unelected senators not to be holding up this bill? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to see the Conservatives' double standard on the Senate because they've used it to block legislation they don't like. They don't hesitate to do that. I'd also like to point out that in a recent article, independent senators were bullied by a Conservative senator
For posting a wanted poster?
the Conservative Party of Canada. That's not the way things work in this place. We don't tell the senators what to do. That's not how it works, unlike the Conservative Party of Canada.
Pretty loose terms for bullying, eh?
Mr. Speaker, the fact in my riding is, and I'm sure it's the same in Montreal, the fact is that food banks are overrun, not with food, but with people coming to use the food bank. People who used to contribute to food banks are now relying on them. Over 2 million Canadians are using food banks. And our proposal is to help farmers, to help bring the price of food down. But the Liberal government wants senators to defy the will of the elected House. Is that what you call democracy? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. I find this a bit strange, Mr. Speaker, that the Conservative Party never mentions the $1.7 billion in support for farmers that we give them all across the country. It's also interesting that they never talk about the impact of climate change, which costs farmers hundreds of millions of dollars, and that number is constantly rising. And speaking of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, media reports show that a Conservative senator, at the request of the Conservative Party, has been bullying other senators. And this was orchestrated, this campaign of violence was orchestrated by the party, Mr. Speaker. Before I proceed to the member for Belleuil-Chambly, I'd just like to remind all members that even in our comments, even if you don't have the floor, it's still important to use
Oh my God,
language.
stop power tripping, buddy.
And people should not be accused of lying deliberately, even by hecklers. The Honourable Member.
Thanks for watching the video to the very end. If you'd like to subscribe, I've made it very easy. You can do so by clicking right there. If you'd like to watch another House of Commons highlight clip, you can do so by clicking right there. And if you'd like to subscribe to my main channel, Mistersunshinebaby, where it's all Canadian political news, then you can do so by tapping up there. Subscribing is absolutely free. There's a button down below that says subscribe. If you'd like to join and become a member and financially contribute, you could do so as well. Thank you so much for watching this video.